Hi, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself first. I'm Maheen. I'm the CEO founder of Maheen the Globe, which is a Seattle-based independent media company. And our intent is to highlight positive stories, stories of immigrants, and conversations that are not usually covered in other platforms, just have an open and honest discussion of different things. This is Tessa Hoyos. She is my Seattle intern. She's the editorial intern. She's currently studying communications and acting in Western Washington. And I am truly honored to be in the presence of this stellar panel of filmmakers. We have Jami from Karachi and Mehreen Jabbar from New York. So I'm going to dive a little deep into Jami. Jami is an award-winning, critically acclaimed director. Some of the amazing music videos that he's made in the early 2000s have been with Strings, Atif Aslam, Ali Zafar Fusion. One of my favorite videos personally is Anjane. I think it's quintessentially Karachi, very visual storytelling style. And Tessa and I watched it again yesterday, and I'm kind of mentoring her about Pakistani music as well. And so the two things that were beyond its years was when the character threw his cell phone into the beach. And that just shows the effects of technology on us, on a mental level. And I think it was so cool for him to show that at that time. And the second thing was when on a bike, there were four kids with the dad and a wife to show the population problem of Karachi. So it was a really cool way of seeing. I was just telling Tessa, we could make a complete comparison of like the Wall Street of New York with Karachi, with the way he's shown Aya Chandigarh in such a sexy and edgy, cool way. And the second thing I wanted to just cover about Jami is like his movie Moor, which got selected for international films, and it got a really good coverage in Hollywood Reporter. And now to Mehreen Jabbar, who's a Pakistani American. She's a New York-based filmmaker and director. My favorite thing that I've watched of Mehreen Jabbar's work is Jackson Heights. It was a true depiction of a Pakistani American, and I could relate to it for somebody living in America for 8 years, the issues that they face, and very beautiful nuances of different characters of that film and how those characters built and the relationships that built during that process. And also a recent film, Ramchand Pakistani, is getting a lot of traction. It was awarded the Global Film Initiative grant. It won a prize with International Federation of Film Critics, an audience award. It won an award in London Film Festival, and which I think is the coolest part is that she got invited to screen her film in MoMA, which is a Museum of Modern Art. So that's about our panel. And let's just talk a little about the topics of today. One is diversity and inclusion in film and art. And the second is, how is this pandemic affecting filmmakers? So we'll get a New York perspective and a Karachi perspective. Let's dive deeper into the diversity and inclusion thing. So, the two arguments when we talk about the academies or the Oscars, right? Some people say, oh, the Oscars are too white. They're always too white. People with women of color or people of color, they just don't get much visibility, and if they do show up, it's just that the academy is doing a little PR and filling up their diversity quota, like if it's Hidden Figures or it's Mahershala Ali in Moonlight. And then the counter argument is that maybe there is not enough Oscar-worthy talent coming out of people of color. So Mehreen, I'm just going to leave the floor to you and to respond.
Okay, hi, thank you for inviting me, and it's good to see all of you and Jami after several thousands of years, even though I think we almost started our careers together, if I remember correctly, in the early 90s. Yeah, and I think Jami is in Boston right now, right? Correct?
Yeah. Close to Boston.
Karachi, where it's night, that's why. So regarding Oscars, it's a known fact. I don't think I personally have come to value the Oscars, unfortunately, less and less over the years. I think it leaves out a lot of incredible cinema from not just from the US, but from around the world as well. It's a bunch of people, it's an academy, people, there's a lot of PR work involved in it. So I would say it's not as transparent. People spend a lot of money to get their films showcased. So it's a very institutional thing. So there's no surprise that it's not that inclusive, and you're absolutely right. They do it. There's a woman year where they'll give it to women, or there's a minority year, and I'm sure there'll be a South Asian year at some point, where maybe Hassan Minhaj and Aziz Ansari would also, So But the problem is also, it's not just the Oscars. I think the world over, female filmmakers generally have not been included and have not had their voices heard. This is not just an American problem, it's the world over. But things are changing, and I think in the last couple of years, more women are getting into the field. The more women get into the field, the more this problem can be tackled. So that's one good thing. I think even in Pakistan and India, I see there are far more female filmmakers now than when I started out. So yeah, that's what I would say. I think it's a global issue rather than just an Oscar issue. And for me, Oscar personally, it's great to watch just because of nostalgia. But I really am more interested in the Indie Spirit Awards or the other stuff.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Jami, what would you like to say? And sorry, you're in Boston. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. So, Maheen, I totally agree with Mehreen. If you notice why blacks or other people are not in the front line, it's very simple. Seeing their lives in America is just horrific. The amount of killings happening, and the way cops treat black people is just too many issues we're dealing with. And you're living in a Trump world right now, and it's completely gone wild. And the second thing, I agree with Mehreen, actually, on all aspects. Once you have more women in the industry, it just completely changes. It completely changed my company. And we have like 70% women in our company, and they're in the front. And somehow the way they manage things is much, much clearer and smoother. And about the Oscar, I totally agree with her completely, because once we were somehow getting this buzz that, okay, Moore is getting closer, we were getting emails, and we were like, okay, they're getting emails for what? And these are lawyers and the agents, and it's like, we can push you in. You just put $250,000, and we will just keep pushing you over, and like in the upper zone of the nomination or whatever. So I spoke to my wife, what is this bullshit? I'm not going to pay extra money for this. And so it was very, very clear how it works. And so, yeah, that was interesting.
Tessa, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, I think that both points you're making are really good. And I'm really inclined to mention that Natalie Portman this past year wore a jacket over her dress with the names of all of the female directors that got snubbed. And I was absolutely shocked that, for one, Greta Gerwig didn't get a nomination despite the work that she's been doing over the past year, like Little Women, and it was just kind of a shock to me. So it really made me question, why didn't she get a nomination? It was a great movie. She's proven herself as a great director. So
right. And so, Mehreen, I wanted to ask about the indie films that you're talking about. How are women of color and just, immigrants, etc., doing when it comes to the indie film world?
I mean, it's not just already the indie film world is in trouble, right? It's always been in trouble because it's always a passion project to make an indie film. If you're not financed by big investors and studios, then, you're always scrambling to raise funds. So already it's a difficult game. And then to add in with the communities that are already marginalized, like women or minorities, it's a double issue. Yeah. The good thing, again, is I want to focus on the positive as well. There are a lot of groups that have been established. For example, there's a group called Film Fatales, which is a bunch of female filmmakers in the US who have come together, who are very active, who have workshops. They meet every month in New York, in LA, and they help each other, they promote each other. And regarding funding, and it's a tough, I don't know what to say, and especially after the pandemic, I really don't know where the film market is heading.
Yeah.
Pakistan is a totally different story, because that was already on its knees. Here, it's going to be tough as well. It really will depend on public perception and where this virus goes, and if cinemas will return. And then will investors be willing to invest in that, or would they rather do television and streaming and something that's safe? or get
Right.
into indie cinema.
Right. Jami, how are things in Karachi when you talk about the pandemic or just the filmmaking world? How is it? What's the direction it's heading in?
Mine, well, personally for me, it was very clear 5 years back that I am the indie filmmaker, and I won't get into the system because I do the art films, and
Right.
and we all see it happening. If you don't do dance and comedy and same exactly Bollywood stuff, the '90s stuff, and I was not grown up with Bollywood cinema. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, I was into Italian cinema because of my father or Hollywood or whatever. So for me, it was pretty tough. And but right now, what we're seeing is well, it's globally it's pretty bad. But for us, it was interesting because we always tend to block Indian cinema first, knowing that Indian cinema brings a footfall. It destroys the cinema first. But this time, India was pretty messed up with our actors and the films. So I think this time they banned the films. So what we were seeing in Pakistani cinema was death way before Corona actually. And then when you speak, even in a panel of producers, I can feel that I say something and everybody like, just stay away from this guy. Don't even have to answer, because I was telling them the industry will die if you keep doing item numbers. If you keep
Right.
doing these things, you will be finished. I said this 7 years back. And now and look at Indian cinema. If you really want to follow in Bollywood, follow Bollywood now. What Mehreen is saying, there's so many great films are coming out, indie films by women filmmakers. But the issue is far much deeper because we just don't know how to create something from nothing. And that's called vision and leadership. And that's the biggest problem right now. For me, Corona is just a nice break for us all
Yeah.
from whatever is happening.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really sad to see the demise day by day, but not understanding how cinema works. You cannot give the same thing for the same price what Bollywood is doing, and for 20 years, we can't give Govinda again and again.
Right. And so, Tessa, for your background, so, India and Pakistan, they're like arch rivals, right? I'm sure you know about that. And so, art from Pakistan also got banned recently. Like lots of actors and actresses from Pakistan were banned. And so they couldn't go to India and actually do projects. So, what I loved about Ramchand Pakistani Mehreen is that you actually picked Naninda Das from India and you had Noman Ijaz from Pakistan, and making this movie where you have both the actors, and it's nice to show visibility and see Indian and Pakistani actors working together. I wanted to ask Tessa what she thought of Ramchand, Pakistani's trailer that she saw yesterday.
It just showed a beautiful landscape of Pakistan, and I liked that it was a little ambiguous. It made you wonder, what is this film about? What is it going to showcase? Is it going to showcase the conflict? Is it going to be a story about a single family or something like that? And it makes you want to watch the film more so that you get an understanding of the story. And I thought that, focusing on the woman in the traditional dress was absolutely beautiful. I loved it. So very, very.
Mehreen, what was the intent of the
So
movie?
just to be clear, Ramchand was made in 2008. So it's an old film. It's not a recent one. And even at that time, the relationship between India and Pakistan, it keeps going up and down. So it was maybe not as bad, but it was pretty fraught. And it's, I don't know, the film is about a Pakistani Hindu boy. It's based on a true story who crossed into the border by mistake together with his father. And the story showcases lives on both sides of him and his father in prison in India, and the mother who's left behind who doesn't know what's happened to them. And it was an interesting juxtaposition because in Pakistan you usually think that, because we are a majority Muslim nation, and the irony of a Pakistani Hindu in a jail which is a mix of Hindus, Muslims, and his relationship with an Indian Indian Hindu jailer who has other prejudices because he comes from the Dalit caste, which is the untouchable caste. So it was a story about prejudices within not just religions and countries, but within ourselves. And it was a very layered thing. The intent was not to show one country superior over another, but focus on relationships and humanity at the end of the day.
I love
But
that.
it's been a while, and I hope, one can, while I strongly believe in cross-border collaborations, it is unfortunate that India, as Jami said, has become much more belligerent, not India as a whole, but some agencies, companies who are very sort of anti-Pakistani artists. I think we are less so. But I wish that spirit of collaboration comes back, because that's the only way. We're so interlinked with our history and traditions. So it's a shame to be separate, art-wise, not country-wise.
Well, for sure. Jami, can you just tell us a little about your latest work? And also, have you moved to Boston for good? My sneaky reporter instincts are just, they want to ask.
Mine, I have planned one thing in my life, that I will stay very Pakistani, all my eggs were in one basket, and then I have some issues with, something happened. So I came forward, and because of that, a lot of backlash, and we took stand for the Me Too movement. And I didn't realize at that time how difficult it was. I think it was the toughest year. 2019 became the toughest year. Then I realized, what really happens to the victims, and mostly in Pakistan, the women. So for me, Pakistan is it. I'm here to settle my family and settle my spirit. Also, it's all over the place right now. But Pakistan is it. That's how I think, and because I know the language, I know the jokes. In America, even if I see a commercial, I'm like, it's a Geico commercial. Okay, let me try how to do a Geico commercial. I just don't understand what is this. The way they think is very interesting, and it's really, really paralyzes me to see how to. Then you have Netflix or Westworld. It has gone so far ahead.
Yes.
It's just mind-boggling to see our industry. This is one part that I used to say, let's build the industry, And as unfortunately, a lot of people didn't understand, because we had one industry in Pakistan which was very, very powerful, which was television commercial industry, because we had the money. And sadly, we directors took it to Bangkok. And I kept saying this, don't do this. For 20 years we have done this. And now we have no studios. We have like 7 cinema cameras and few focus pullers. And over here in Boston, you have like maybe 5,000 cameras. New York might have 25,000 cameras. And sadly, that is the only issue I see. And now with radicalism taking over Pakistan again, I feel it's very, very tough. People don't understand. We have a very nice, good-looking prime minister, but it's not that simple right now. It's more difficult, and so for me, Pakistan is but I'm finishing a Sindhi film as a producer. That was our commitment to graduates from universities. Whoever is the best student, we will give them $100,000 or $200,000 and make a feature film, instead of giving them a short film and a camera or do something. Short film doesn't do anything. You have to go through the grind and see the pain. Like my first film, 021, wasn't my film, but the way it just came out, then the director had to be fired. I had to rewrite the film. It became, for me, it was like a double PhD project. How to manage and release a movie. It's very easy to make a movie. It's so difficult to release a movie properly. With 021, it was just mind-boggling. Then to release a movie outside, that is very interesting also. Maybe Mehreen understands this. The festival circuit, almost like Oscars, like you do this, you do that. And even in Busan, we had to make a different cut. Our agent in America said, no, let's do a shorter, simpler version, linear, Don't go to. Then we have like movies like Parasite. Why did you make us? We spent 30,000 extra for a different cut, just for Busan, just for Busan. Then I said, no, I'm not owning this cut because it's too simple. So Palm Springs ran the same cut, my version, and everybody was fine. So it's not easy to be a filmmaker and then giving your baby to someone else to manage it is just horror. So maybe I just covered 2-3 topics. But
Oh, no, this was really comprehensive and amazing. And it's really interesting, Jami, that you say that, because the audience in Pakistan is diagrammatically like opposed to the audience in US. I mean, over here, everyone has ADD. No one can watch anything more than 30, 40 seconds with full attention span. So, for people who are creative, it's so frustrating to like grasp that attention. And so, even Tessa and I like struggle with it. We're like, oh, our interview last week was longer. We need to make it shorter and shorter for it to get noticed. But even though the content that we're churning, or anyone may be churning, may be great, but it's just the attention span of an American audience is hard to really grapple and hold with. And Tessa, you can tell me as someone who is quintessentially American, white, and also third year in college.
Yeah. I mean, half white, half Mexican. But yeah, it's really hard because I grew up in a generation where we basically had technology our whole lives. I mean, I was born in the 90s, but yeah, I remember in maybe 4th or 5th grade discovering YouTube and, going down that rabbit hole. And they were like short 5-minute videos, and, you could binge watch them for hours and hours and hours. And, you really can't read a book anymore because it's just so boring. I've always been that way, because I can't sit and do the same task for an hour or 2 hours. So yeah, we live in a world where technology really rules everything that we do, and it's really hard to stay focused.
Right, and there's this constant pressure of just changing things up, making it different and exciting and engaging and just stimulating people almost at like all the time. So I'm sure it's hard for filmmakers to like deal with something like that when you're making movies that are very thoughtful and have these concepts that can just flow with a certain time frame. So I just want to ask Mehreen about her latest project and what she's working on, if she wanted to share.
It's actually this pandemic has not affected me that much because my last project ended last April. So since then, I've been pretty much in New York and just thinking and reading. I haven't been on set for almost a year. And I'm using this time to develop a lot of projects, most of which will never get produced. So, but it's fun to just keep thinking and making Google Docs. And so between a couple of TV series, web series, film ideas, working with 2-3 writers, there is no future plan in mind right now, only to make it the best possible script and idea. That's what I'm planning. I just finished a web series last year, which will hopefully be streaming in the next couple of months. And yeah, that's about it. Film is scary, and as Jami knows, I've made 2 films, and the third, you really I have to really think what kind of film I want to make, because the kind of film I want to make, I don't know how many people want to give me money to make that film, because there won't be people dancing unnecessarily around trees. Unless they're in love with the tree. And, if that's the case, then it's justified.
Right. I also wanted to let you guys know, so I was part of Women in Film Seattle for a year and a half, and I have a good solid network with filmmakers, and I've actually covered them in Maheen the Globe. A couple of names I wanted to share is of Joe Ardinger and Rosalie Miller. They had this movie called Personhood, a very powerful reproductive rights movie that was featured in Doc NYC, which is the largest film festival for short documentary filmmakers. So I featured them, and I've been in talks with them as well. So I want this platform to be a platform of networking, collaborations, where you can get to know the Seattle market, right, for your work, and also visibility for it. So we do an event, you can say a PR or whatever event of Maheen the Globe, and we do film screenings. And I did that of Mola Jet last year. So I was thinking of doing Mehreen, your latest work, Jami, your latest work. And I think independent filmmakers need more support than the commercial filmmakers. That's just the way it is. And so our intent is to help the indie film world.
Okay.
to our
Yeah,
process.
that's a fantastic idea. I love Seattle. I've been there twice for the Sphere and for the Seattle Film Festival. So I only go there for 2 days, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And yes, I agree. We need, especially South Asian cinema needs not just South Asian audiences, but it needs to be expanded to a more universal audience as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so let's just talk a little about the pandemic. Like, you guys are all away from family, and some of you are or not, I don't know. But how are you feeling? Are you feeling isolated? Do you want to be around people, or are you an introvert and enjoying this time? Like, I'm thriving. I love it. I just love being with my daughter and my husband, and just trying to be creative in my own space, cooking or cleaning or whatever it is. I'm liking this time. I feel like this is a good time for me. What are you thinking, Jami? How are you feeling about this?
Well, you use the right word, introvert. I mean, I don't know when was the last time I went for a party. So I love this. I really believe this world needed it. And like you were saying about everything is so fast. I came to America after a long time and I felt it. It's a nice example when I went with my nephew to a basketball game. And this thing is really created in a way, the whole game is designed in a way, it's like a cinema. You go really fast, a small stadium. It's not like soccer, you really have to work hard. Soccer, you just do like 2 goals, 2 and 1, and that's it, you're dead. And over here, like 80 versus 90 points. Like, what is this? And then you have the dancing also in the middle. And I was there in the Staples, like, and you're like, what is this? What is this? And my nephew was like, what's your issue? I know, why are these girls dancing? Cheerleaders comes for 5 seconds, they dance. And so it was very interesting for me because I think this slowdown and oil prices going negative, we need to understand this. What is going on? This is the smallest thing. It's not even living. Virus is not living. It's not bacteria. It has destroyed the capitalism, the greed, and it has made us. The best thing about this now is the climate change deniers. They will listen this time. There is no conspiracy. The earth is not flat anymore. And it will really matter. So this is the right way. Like you were talking about Anjane, I'll just take 10 seconds. Anjane was all about that. Throwing away the mobile phone, throwing away the credit cards, throwing away the tie, the banking and the corporate sector. Then waking up, seeing the water with the lock on it.
Yes.
That's how you used to see in Baldia town in 70s, 80s. People used to stand in line to get water. This is where Karachi is, it's Mumbai. And seeing 5 people on a bike, all kids are sleeping. And that's what we see every day. We need to understand third world countries are the way. So you slow down, you make movies. You don't make movies to run your studios. This is not the way to make movies. Because your salaries are so high, you have to make Superman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, God knows what. And then you have nothing for independent cinema, which is the core, which is the soul actually, running the entire world. And Christopher Nolan doesn't end up at Cannes, maybe once or twice. But then you have Anurag Kashyap as a like judge and jury. So it really matters.
Yeah.
So this slowdown, this pandemic is sadly, unfortunately, is beautiful for the world actually, for us to understand. We need to understand all this.
Tessa, how are you finding it being at home?
I'm stir crazy, but also I feel like the more I stay inside, the more I'm contributing to people getting healthy, and that's more important to me than going, to a coffee shop or going out with my friends or whatever. That matters way more to me than, going out.
Right. What about you, Mehreen?
I think Jami's kind of said most of it. It's I'm enjoying staying home. I think the only thing one misses is friends. I'm also not a huge red carpet party person myself. So this is a relief also. It's a relief to see Instagram not full of that. And also, I think what one does miss is family and just meeting close friends. But Zoom has kind of, one gets sick of Zoom as well because you have to be constantly looking. I had to brush my hair and, I did get out of my pajamas, even though I didn't have to. I didn't have to. But it is twofold. It is incredible for the environment, as everyone's talking about how the air is clearing up. My fear is, I hope Jami's right and people take climate change more seriously. And the reason why these viruses and things come in the first place, it's you're destroying ecosystems, you're encroaching into forests, and you're getting, you're disturbing the natural order.
Yeah.
But human beings also have very short memory. So once they get back, it'll be a rat race back into the economy, back to, obviously a lot of people have lost their jobs. It'll be back to rat race, getting jobs, getting money back. People have lost savings. So that's the other sad side. We're still okay. We're not, we don't have to go out and beg for food, but there are people, there are thousands and millions who, if not doing it right now, they will have to do it. So it's a double-edged sword, this pandemic. And obviously it's not the solution, but I hope there is mindfulness that comes out of it.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing is, I think you get to appreciate people much more. You hear from people you haven't heard from in years.
Yes. And you talk about the Zoom calls. It's so interesting. So I feel like I'm more connected with the people I want to be. And I'm so selective about people that make me happy, people who are genuine, right? And so I think in that sense, it's been amazing that people are connecting with family, and they also have this, that they'll never take their family for granted. Like, I'll never take my parents for granted. I was in Karachi like a couple of months ago, and I was just thinking about all the fights I had with my mom, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love my mom. I want to be with her right now, So I think it's also creating the space where people value family much more and value the right friends, the real friends much more. So I think human connection and social connection, all the fakeness of the Instagram world is kind of gone, and all those social parties that are fake, essentially, is kind of
the influencers are losing their mind. They don't know what to do.
I'm sure, right? Yeah. It's so interesting to see what they're posting. It makes me laugh.
I don't think Jami's on Instagram.
Are you on Instagram, Jami?
No way.
It's better than Facebook, Jami. I'm telling you. Get on it. It's just photos. So there's no one's talking or
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, seeing this turn in social media has been so interesting, and I feel like last week I was talking to Ali Kazmi and Simi Rahil, and Simi Rahil brought up such a brilliant point. She's like, what you truly are will come out at this point. If you're boring, you'll be boring. If you're conniving, you'll be conniving. And if you're somebody who's creative, you'll be creative. So I think that was a really cool. Thank you so much for both of you of your time today. And I'm incredibly honored with the stellar panel, and I've looked up at your work for years and years and years, and you're going to be having a new fan, Tessa, right there, who's getting to know your work more and more. And post-call steps are that this is basically populating our film beat. So we are trying to launch it full on, and we would like to showcase both your works and do screenings if we do events post-pandemic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was great being on the panel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Great having you.
Stay safe.